Our boat continues by Appledore Island and heads towards Star Island. What attracted me to Star Island was to have a day on the ocean with Carol and to hike around Star Island to view its geology, birds, and buildings. As we approach Star Island, the enormous Star Island Hotel and other buildings come into focus. The Star Island Corporation has run Star Island since 1915. The Star Island Corporation runs a wide array of multi-generational classes for music, arts, crafts, writing, nature studies, and activities for spiritual renewal. The island is also open for the general public to visit. It is interesting to compare the two pictures of the Star Island Hotel. One is from 1910 and the other from 2018. Little appears changed in the 108 years. The boat docks and we get off. We go into the hotel to get our bearings, have a cold drink, and get a map of the island. It was an incredibly hot day with few breezes despite being 9 miles offshore. The hotel has a lot of arts and crafts style furniture. The check-in area has gas lights that have been electrified. There are no locks on any room doors. The dining facility is set up for family-style dining. Meals are offered at certain hours to accommodate student schedules. The plumbing fixtures look novel in that they are so old and they're exposed. We feel a bit like we are in a place where time has stood still for over 100 years. We leave the hotel to walk around the island to explore. We decide to walk along the shore. Upon leaving the hotel, we come across a small cemetery. This is a reminder that families lived on this island for many years. This cemetery was for the Caswell family. The most prominent marker indicated someone had died in 1825. We will see several cemetery plots as we hike around the island. As we head back towards the shore by the dock to start our hike, we encounter a snake in the grass, one of Carol's favorite animals. At the dock, the ship we took to Star Island, the Challenger, is still tied up. We look across the water and can see Appledore Island with its prominent observation tower. To the right, we can see Smutty Nose Island and Cedar Island, which form a chain to Star Island, connected by rock jetties that serve as breakwaters. The scenery is classic northern New England coast and ocean views. Weathered cedar shingled cottages, people engaged in various activities, rock outcrops with gulls wandering around, boats and kayaks in the harbor. Whenever I look at geology in New England, I look for the relatively recent effects of glaciation, which has shaped our landscapes. The Isles of Shoals preserves much evidence of the recent ice age. When you approach the Isles of Shoals from Portsmouth, the northwest side of the islands are relatively smooth, appearing like whalebacks protruding from the water. This shape is the result of glacial ice that came from the northwest and scoured over the islands, leaving a smooth Stoss side. The northeast, east, and southeast sides of the island show a jagged profile because the ice plucked large boulders from the jointed surfaces. These lee sides are also pounded by ocean storms and freeze-thaw cycles, which further the jagged profiles. Around 20,000 years ago, sea level was more than 300 feet lower, since there was more than a mile of ice on land. With lower sea levels, the Isles of Shoals were joined to the mainland as a continuous landmass. Even with a mere 60-foot drop in sea level, several of the larger islands are combined into one landmass that was above sea level. Some of the interpretation of the Isles of Shoals geology is done by correlating the island geology to the mainland geology. A little water doesn't get in the way of this. The bedrock on the Isles of Shoals was formed miles below the current surface. The oldest rocks are the metamorphic rocks, which appear as stratified belts or fragments. These rocks started out as muds, sands, volcanics, and limestone that was deposited in a shallow sea. They were compressed and heated during continental collisions driven by plate tectonics many miles below the surface, causing them to change, or metamorph, into schists and gneisses. Following this, massive intrusions of magma occurred miles below the surface, which solidified into granite. Depending on how fast or slow the granite cooled, the rock would have large or small crystals. The granite cuts across the schists and gneisses in many areas. Through millions of years of uplift and erosion, these rocks are now on the surface, leaving a complex puzzle of formation for geologists to unravel. The cracks you see in much of the bedrock is the result of pressure from overlying rock, erosion from the ocean, and freeze and thaw cycles. These cracks are referred to as joints, and many of them are trending in the same direction, are called joint sets. We also see many igneous rocks ranging from fine-grained granites that cooled quickly to the coarse pegmatites that are loaded with large crystals. We find some contact points of rock which show large and small crystals, which requires additional analysis. All this geology and so little time to talk about it. Block joining, hanging pendants, boudinage, slicken sides, striae, and more. I guess we need to come back here and do a Littleton rock show. We are starting to bake from the hot sun and lack of breezes, but we continue with our hike. We move from the bedrock shore towards an interesting looking building. It's an art building, a place on the edge of the island where anyone can stay and choose between several mediums available to create your own masterpiece. Carol would have stayed, but there was more of the island to explore. Outside, we see a large erratic boulder dropped here by the melting glacier. It is quite attractive in this setting. It is highly weathered, appears bleached white, and is comprised of large crystals. We walk by a small pond and notice a large number of birds, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. They are tree swallows flocking for migration. It is a spectacular sight watching so many birds that are right on schedule fueling up with food before starting on their southerly migration. Tree swallows feast on flying insects. Their fueling for migration is coordinated with when their fuel source is at its maximum population. We continue along our hike and come upon a group of attractively weathered stone and gray shingle cottages. We were talking, then noticed a sign next to the path stating, "Quiet, meditation in progress." This might have been part of a program offered that week at Star Island. We see more buildings and pass some outdoor art neatly done in stone. In the distance, we see a large stone monument being surrounded with tree swallows. We pass through a wooden turnstile in the center of a stone wall. Along the trail is an attractive trellis that has seen better days. We look back after passing through the turnstile to admire the buildings. We notice a great blue heron flying overhead. The trail is thick with vegetation. Along the trail, we notice another small headstone. We come upon a large stone monument which pays tribute to the Reverend John Tuck. The monument is the tallest gravestone in New Hampshire at 46.5 feet. We continue along the trail and come out to a large solar array that is used to generate power for Star Island in an effort to make the island facilities self-sufficient from an energy perspective. Leaving the solar array, we locate the monument to Captain John Smith. The monument is, well, frankly, a mess. It is covered in gull waste, and the monument has been brutalized by the harsh ocean environment. It does pay tribute to John Smith, citing the Smith Isles in 1614, which were eventually renamed the Isles of Shoals. Leaving the monument, we come upon another small grave site, once again reminding us that families lived on this island so many years ago. We head around the back of the island, admiring some beautiful ocean views. As we head towards the rear of the hotel, we find a workshop where a person from Acton, Mass. Works doing maintenance on the buildings on the island. We chat with him about a boat he is working on and how he likes working on Star Island. Interestingly, the name of his workshop is There, and an adjacent building is named Here. This happens to be the namesake of our show, Here and There. We proceed along the rear of the hotel and find a large piece of bedrock that shows glacial striations from the last ice age. Ice covered New England and the Isles of Shoals until approximately 13,500 years ago. The grinding of the ice over some of the bedrock outcrops produces striations in the direction of the ice flow. We retreated to the shaded porch of the hotel and sat in the rockers for some lunch. After lunch, we still had time to look for shorebirds and sea ducks. I find some white-winged scoter and a few distant eiders, which like to play around the breaking waves near the shore. I then look at the geology of the bedrock. There is much heavily metamorphosed gneiss and schist, with some younger intrusions of granite that cuts across the bedrock. I see some spectacular igneous dikes that are dark in color. These dikes are between the gneiss and schist and tend to erode since it is softer than the surrounding rock. I venture up to the gazebo to meet Carol, catch a breeze, and take it easy as we wait for the boat that will take us back to Portsmouth. The MV Thomas Layton arrives at the dock for a return voyage. We board the boat for a return trip. We head towards Portsmouth as the Star Island Hotel gets smaller in the distance. Just before entering Portsmouth Harbor, I was fortunate to see a whale. I verified the sighting with other people that observed it. I am not sure what type of whale it was, but the minke whale is common in the Gulf of Maine. As we entered Portsmouth Harbor, we passed Newcastle on the port side, which is the New Hampshire side. Newcastle is the site of Fort William and Mary, which was part of Great Britain's worldwide fortifications. It was captured by Patriot forces, recaptured by the British, and abandoned during the Revolutionary War. In December 1774, Paul Revere made a ride to Portsmouth 4 months before his more famous ride. He rode to Portsmouth to warn the Patriots Fort William and Mary was going to play a role in the confiscation and restricting of selling powder to the Patriots. In 1809, it was renamed Fort Constitution. It is now on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places and can be visited to learn all of its history. We continue back to the dock to end our trip. We can recognize we are near based on the huge salt piles that are used on the highways to the left and 2 bridges beyond where we started. We saw lots of sights and were less than an hour drive from Littleton. We will definitely go back to Portsmouth to visit Strawberry Bank and other sites, and we will definitely return to the Isles of Shoals.